Hi, I'm Cece Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. I am your host, Chef Cece Péan. I know things look a little different today. We're not in the kitchen, but we are in my office. And we're in my office because today I wanted to have a conversation with you all. So I am now inviting you to feel free to pose questions during this episode. Some of them I will be able to answer right away. Some of them we will address next week because this is a two-part series. But this week, I really wanted to talk to you about the concept of let food be thy medicine. I'm sure many of us have seen this quote. If you've gone to your local vegan restaurant or health food store or Whole Foods or something like that, it is a quote from Hippocrates that we see quite often. Let food be thy medicine. And I felt it was really important to address that with you all tonight. Many of you know within the last few weeks, there have been a few people that have been diagnosed with cancer. And in particular, colon cancer. This has happened twice. So, I just felt like it's great to cook delicious food, delicious vegan food, delicious plant-based food, and all of that. But we need to know why we're doing this. It is beyond having a delicious meal. We're living in a day and age where our food source is suspect. We're living in a day and age where, and I mean, this has been for some time, it's not new, where our appetites are being manipulated to support an agenda, and the agenda is addiction. We live in a society, we live in a food world where the producers, these major, huge corporations, they want you to be addicted to food because that means they'll make more money. Okay? There are companies that solely exist to figure out how to make food addictive. Americans eat a ridiculous amount of packaged and prepared and snack foods and things like that. Things that we didn't have in the past. In the past, if you wanted a snack, you picked up a piece of fruit. Now they have made it so available to you in your checkout line. I shop at Sprouts. In the checkout line at Sprouts, there are these like 2 and 3 bite pieces of chocolate. And right where you put your food on the conveyor belt, there are all these little cookies and things. And I will admit to you that I'm a chef, so I'm quite often I'm in the grocery store, and sometimes it's 2 to 3 times a day. And I had developed this really bad habit of just going to get myself a little treat. And so I would pick up that little, chocolate truffle. And then I would see a mini bag of chocolate chip cookies and I would eat that. And again, I was sometimes going to the store 2 or 3 times a day. And so what was happening is I was packing my body with this junk food and I wasn't paying attention to it. And while we may see effects in our waistline, some of you may see it in your skin breaking out. Some of you may be lethargic. What's most important is how our digestive system and our physical body is affected by food. This is not exaggerating one bit. What you eat either contributes to your health or it contributes to disease. That's it. That is not overreaching. That is not being dramatic or sensationalistic. What you eat will either be fuel or it will be poison. Okay? So, what's the big deal with food? Well, the challenge with food is you have to eat. If you are a drug addict, if you are an alcoholic, those are addictive, of course, but it's not something that you have to partake of every day. Every single time you pick up that fork, it's lunch, it's breakfast, it's lunch, it's dinner, you are faced with a decision of whether you are going to eat for your health or you're going to be eating towards disease. So let's talk about how this happens. Does it really matter what I eat? Yes. I'm going to be looking down to the left because I took notes. So just so you know, that's why I'm doing that. We are all predisposed to something. Okay? It can either be diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Some of us have a history of cancer and so on. In my family, my grandmother passed away from stomach cancer, as did my mother. Okay? My mother was a diabetic. My mother had high blood pressure. My mother had diabetes and she had high blood pressure simply because of what she ate. Point blank, period. We are also learning now that there are some types of cancers that are affected by what we eat. So keep that in mind. What we choose to eat will either increase that predisposition or it will fight against it. I cannot definitively say that diet will eradicate the likeliness of a disease, but I can definitively say that a diet high in fat, sugar, salt, etc., will increase your chances of developing disease. One of the greatest challenges we face are diseases that are a result of inflammation. When you look at communities of color, most of the diseases that we are fighting and dealing with are diseases of inflammation. So that's hypertension, that's high blood pressure, that's high cholesterol, that is heart disease, all of these things. And something that I have personally dealt with in my family, my father, when my mother passed away, my father developed high blood pressure. He had never had it, but he developed high blood pressure when my mother passed. My father was put on high blood pressure pills, medication. Okay. What happens after you've been on that medication for years? It actually destroys your kidneys. So now my father is dealing with the side effects of a medication that he was taking to address a health issue. You see how that happens? So modern pharma, they address the symptom, not the root cause, the symptom. And in dealing with and addressing that symptom, there are now other issues that he is having to deal with. This is why it is so important to, as much as you can, address these health issues by modifying your diet. Now, it may be that you're on medication for some time and then you get off of it. But what I don't want you all to do is to hear that you have some kind of issue and you say, oh, I'll just take medication and that will deal with it. Do you know how many people are diabetics that end up with amputations? Do you know why that is? How many diabetics that have eye bleeds? They lose their vision. All of these things happen. One of the main reasons that happens is they'll get on insulin and they do not change their diet whatsoever. Something happens where they feel like, okay, I'm taking this insulin, that's going to deal with the issue. It does not deal with the issue. It deals with the symptom, not the cause. And so you have people who are saying, I've been taking my medication, I've been taking my metformin, I've been taking my insulin, and I'm still having these issues. Let food be thy medicine. We have enough information out there where we can address these issues. Now, again, I'm not telling you to go cold turkey. I'm not a medical professional. But what I'm encouraging you to do is to find out how you can address this issue beyond medication. And let me tell you something else. Do you realize that most doctors have no training in nutrition whatsoever? They may have a course in nutrition. When food and diet is so powerful that it can heal your body, why aren't doctors pushing this? Why aren't doctors being educated in how to eat for health? It's because the big dollars come from pharma. The big dollars come from the pharmaceutical company, and those overnight stays in the hospital that you have to take when you're there because something went wrong. There's big money in sickness and disease. Let's rob the bank. Let's make sure that there is no more money going to this big pharma and medical facilities and hospitals and healthcare organizations. We have the power on our forks to make a difference. So let's do it. One of the biggest culprits of disease, I've got a few people on here. Tell me what you think in the standard American diet. What is the greatest contributor to disease? I'm going to give you a little bit of time. What do you think is the greatest contributor to disease in the modern American diet? By the way, do you know that there are countries around the world that have outlawed some of the food companies that are here in the United States of America? And that is because what the food is full of is against the law. For example, Monsanto. Monsanto can't go over to Europe and sell their wares. That is why somebody can go over to Europe and they can eat something that they're eating here. Trans fats is a good one, but I'm looking for something else. And it's something that we all, most of us partake of, just blindly. Europe won't allow those foods over there because they are dangerous for your health. But here in America, it's something that we are constantly coming up against. Yes, furaha. Furaha. Are you from Kenya? I believe furaha means happy. I think that's what it means. Sugar. Sugar contributes to more deaths in this country than anything else. The diseases that come from the overconsumption of sugar contributes to more disease than anything else. Did you know that when you eat sugar, if you don't burn that sugar off, which most of us aren't going to do, most of us live very sedentary lifestyles. If you don't burn that sugar off, what happens to it? It turns into fat. And that fat usually is right around your waistline. That's where it goes. That adipose fat, that yellow fat. That fat weighs on your organs. It presses down on your organs and it creates issues for you. Sugar needs to be out of our diets. And I'm not just talking about adding sugar to things. I want you all to get into the habit when you pick up a product in the store, take a look at what the ingredients are. Look at the order of the ingredients. because the order of ingredients is going to tell you what's in the greatest amount to the smallest amount. You will be surprised how many things you probably eat on a daily basis that sugar is the first or the second ingredient. If it's not sugar, it's corn syrup. That's no better. That's no better. We have got to get to the point where we are very deliberate and intentional about what we're eating, what we're consuming. And mothers, you have the charge of teaching your children how to eat. The habits they develop in childhood, they will carry with them. They'll either have to fight against them or they'll carry it with them to good health. I have a nephew. My sister-in-law, Gloria, is a vegan. And I remember when her son Jise was a little boy, he had no interest in soda pop. He had no interest in cake. I remember it was a family birthday celebration one time, and he took a little bit of cake and he pushed it away and he said it was too sweet. He had been conditioned to eating healthy foods. And I've spoken to you all about this on other occasions, and I've said to you, don't be dismayed. You can always retrain your palate. It is not as difficult as you think. Now, if you're somebody who is addicted to sugar, that's a whole nother conversation, because sugar literally is more addictive than cocaine. If you're addicted to sugar, if sugar is part of your daily diet, Fruit Loops, so many things, all those snack foods, all of those things, you are literally going to have to go through withdrawals, but you can do it and you deserve it. And you should put the effort in to overcoming it, because sugar is doing nothing good for you. A few weeks ago, I made a dessert with you all, those cookies. I used banana to sweeten them. That's a great substitute. You can use applesauce to sweeten. Now, I know with the American diet, we have gotten so used to things being overly sweetened that it'll take some time for you to get used to, but it's worth the effort. Okay? So sugar is the number one thing. Let me read this to you about sugar. The consumption of sugar has been implicated in increased risk of a variety of chronic diseases, including obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Did you know that you could get fatty liver disease from sugar? You can. Not only that, cognitive decline is associated with excessive sugar consumption and some cancers. If you look at the world that we're living in now, doesn't it seem like there are a lot of people that are being diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's? All of a sudden, it just seems like so many people are being diagnosed with this disease. I truly believe there is a correlation between diet and that cognitive decline. Think about it. Let's talk a little bit about meat. Now, many people on this watching this show are probably either Seventh-day Adventists or familiar with Adventism. And one of the beautiful things about the belief system is that we have always had a health message. And the health message really spoke about eating pure food. And if you're eating meat, well, meat was discouraged, but if you were eating small amounts of it and staying more to like things like chicken and fish like that. But let's talk about meat, okay? Regularly eating red meat and processed meat can raise the risk of type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, stroke, and certain cancers. And listen to this, especially colorectal cancer. The incidence of colorectal cancer has gone up incredibly over the past 15, 20 years. Part of what we're dealing with is that because we have grown so much as a country, because the bottom line is about making that dollar, these companies are trying to figure out the quickest, fastest way to get these products out. Quality is no longer the focus. It is about quantity, just getting that stuff out there. So a lot of these foods, these processed and packaged foods, are being made with more and more preservatives, more and more fillers, more and more things that when they get into our body doesn't know what to do with it. Meat literally rots in your system. It has to break down in your system. I've shared with you all during some of our cooking sessions that when you eat things like fruits and vegetables, legumes, grains, your body breaks that down very easily. It takes what it needs and it gets rid of the rest. When you eat meat, you're disturbing your digestive system, and it takes longer for that to break down. While that meat is putrefying in your system, think about the damage that it's doing. Really just stop and think about that. And I'm not going to say that it doesn't taste good. I remember several years ago, my pastor at the time, Pastor Don McFall, was talking about how he grew up eating pork sausage and biscuits and things like that. And he said, I'm not going to say it doesn't taste good, but it's not good for you. So there are all these foods and things out there that I know they taste good. They taste delicious. People wouldn't eat them if they didn't. But how are they serving you? When you consume death, how is that going to prolong your life? How is that going to make you healthier? It's quite simple. And I understand that we have an international audience here, and I'm speaking of things that might be much more accessible and manageable in different types of societies. But what I want to encourage you to do, if you are a meat eater, start pulling back for your consumption of meat. If you're eating meat 3 times a day, take it down to 2 times a day, then 1 time a day, then 3 times a week, then 2 times a week. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your body to get rid of those things. Do not make your body a graveyard. Meat slowly breaks down in your body. We don't know if that meat, we don't know if that cow had any kind of blood disease, any kind of anything. You don't know. You are entrusting your health to farmers, to ranchers. You are believing that your health is at the top of their agenda. You are believing that they're only going to put the finest of the finest out there. They simply can't do it. The numbers won't allow it. So every single time you are ingesting that burger, every single time you're eating that steak, every single time you're eating this, you're eating that, you are putting your health at risk. Now, because of the day and age that we're living in, we have to be concerned about fruit and vegetables. We have to be concerned about pesticides. So the next thing I'm going to tell you is if you are somebody who is not consuming meat and you're just doing your fruit, you're eating the rainbow, you're making sure that you're living a plant-based lifestyle, as much as possible, you need to make sure that you are eating organic. Why is that important? Let me read this to you. Pesticides are toxic to humans. They induce adverse health effects, including cancer, effects on reproduction, immune or nervous system. There was a test that was done, and more than 90% of the samples of strawberries, apples, cherries, spinach, nectarines, and grapes tested positive for 2 or more pesticides. Listen to this: kale, collard, mustard greens, as well as hot peppers and bell peppers had the most pesticides detected. 103, up to 103 types of pesticides on kale, collards, mustard greens. Let me tell you, as a Black woman, when I heard that, and I know that traditionally, part of the traditional African American diet are these greens, it made sense to me why communities of color are dying from the diseases they are. Because even if you're eating some vegetables, you have to be careful. They need to be organic. Exactly, Dion. They need to be organic. I know it's pricey, but you know what's even more expensive? Hospital bills, being on medication, having a stroke, being dependent on other people because you can't live independently anymore because your diet has destroyed your health. One of the great things that's happening now as a result of COVID is a lot of people have gotten into farming. They've gotten into having their little area in the back of their house where they can grow things. And I shared that with you all one day. I'm going to be I'll have that ready for you next week. There are sheets that you can buy now that have seeds in them. And you can literally, with a box this big, as wide as this is long, you can virtually anywhere have your own garden and grow kale, collards, all of those things right outside your door. Tomatoes, bell peppers, all of those things you can grow on your own. I realize that may not be realistic for everybody, but if you can even do it on your patio at your apartment. That is something to take advantage of. People, we have to be vigilant about our health. Publix doesn't care about your health. Kroger's doesn't care about your health. Whole Foods doesn't even care about your health. Ultimately, their concern is the bottom line is the dollar. My husband said to me the other day, if there's a health food aisle in the grocery store, what are all the other aisles? Right? They distinguish health food in one aisle, not even one aisle, one section in the aisle is labeled health food. So what does that say about all the other aisles? Your health is nothing to take lightly. Once your health is attacked, once you're battling a disease, it's hard to come back. You can, but it's hard to come back. So what I'm encouraging you all to do is to be proactive, to be intentional about your health. Something I want to touch on before we wrap it up this evening is antioxidants. There's something called free radicals that are everywhere. They're just in the environment. They're from exhaust, smog, everything. They're constantly bombarding our system. And those free radicals, if they're not arrested, they can create disease. They can cause disease. This is another reason why it's so important to have a healthy diet, and in particular, an antioxidant-rich diet, because the oxidation is what creates disease. So antioxidant arrests that disease. It stops it from its proliferation. So that is why it's important to eat antioxidant-rich foods. What are those things? Those are fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds. For example, those same berries that I was talking to you about, Those are antioxidant rich, but be sure to get them organic or else you're wasting your time. Okay? That's part one. Next week we'll have part two. If you all have any questions, please send them in so I can address them next week. But happy world, beautiful. But people, we're dealing with some serious things now. We're dealing with some serious things. And I realize as I get older, these things are happening more and more. And we have to be vigilant about our health. We have to be intentional about our health, because if we're not actively working on our health every single day, you are just opening yourself up for disease. And that's not anything that any of us want to deal with. He came that we might have life and life more abundantly. So let's embrace this information. Let's apply it to our lives and live the abundant life that our master creator intended for us. Thank you for joining me on Reclaiming Your Health. We'll see you all next week with part 2. Bye-bye.